Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby here with one of the stars of Prayer for the French Republic, Betsy Aidem. And, when I think of this play, the thing that keeps resonating very loudly in my head, even months after watching it, is your character, Marcelle, asking, "Where can I go to feel safe?" Which is sort of this unanswerable question, and that the play attempts to tackle. How did that question resonate with you when you first read the script?
I think when we first read it was the very first time I read it was actually just before the pandemic, within
Right.
a few months of the pandemic. And so that question was certainly something that I'd grown up hearing my relatives talking about this and that, but it wasn't anything that immediate to me. As soon as the pandemic hit, that was definitely a place like, where are we safe? And then, all through the different morphs of that, from readings, workshops, this and that, to finally going into the off Broadway production. And then 2 years going into the Broadway production. And then before we went into rehearsal, October 7th happened. So that safety question comes up again. In last August, I found out where my ancestors had perished in Poland in the 1940s. So there was always this question. I just saw Cabaret last week, for example, and Herr Schultz says, this will pass, this will pass. You know, history has taught us that these things don't pass, and so it's very interesting to just feel like it's a live question. It's not a question from another time. It's a very live, living, breathing question.
Yes, because the play, the present day of the play is around 2016, but it
Right.
just feels, watching it on Broadway, it feels like it's present day this year too, with 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I think, interesting to watch people still grapple with this question and look at, you know, the Jewish community and how they have constantly had to move around. What were the discussions like that backstage?
Well, you mean in rehearsal, everybody has their own stories or their own relationship. Even those of us who weren't Jewish, who were singled out because of wherever they lived, what time, a period that they lived, wherever they were living. Everybody's had some kind of trauma, but that the particular of it, it changed. It was constantly changing. My own relationship with changed throughout the run of the show. I was going places towards the end of the run, long past the time that you came to see it, that I was excavating stuff from way back that just floated into my consciousness again. And I was like, oh, wow, why didn't this occur to me sooner? Why is it coming up now? And it could be what you read, it could be um, an article. There's still a handful of survivors. I read the obituaries for some reason of every Holocaust survivor or person who saved or person who fought in World War II. You read these things and you say, where did they start? Where did they end up? Why did they survive? And I find them instructive because who among us is going to survive?
And Marcelle is kind of a fascinating character, I feel like, to play because she really changes her mindset over the course of this play in terms of do we leave home or not? What is it like kind of charting that journey as an actress? What moment do you think kind of changed things for her?
It was David Cromer. I have to give him so much credit because he so beautifully calibrated uh, when I was going too fast or going too high or getting too alarmed when it read as manic as opposed to logical and reasoned. So he was incredibly helpful. Josh himself has written this gorgeous play. Josh, who just won the Guggenheim, very excited for him. Um, they charted this so beautifully for me that, it was really up to me to not get in the way and screw it up. Uh, but I found that, like, the calmer I started and the more self-assured, with a young cousin who was much more nervous than me, that if I started in that place, I had nowhere to go but like everywhere. So that was incredibly helpful. Seeing the fear on seeing my son bloodied, seeing the fear on my husband's face, looking at my daughter whose, grasp of being able to function in her life was tenuous at best. And my father faltering, each of my relationships with different people in the play informed the more blithe my brother was about that it's no big deal. You just don't have to own it. You don't have to wear it out on your sleeve, So there were all those kinds of things. I miss her so much. She was a person that I felt like was both inside me and a friend. This strange thing happens to you that, so much of you is in a character, but so much of that character is somebody you want to be, or, that I keep imagining that she went back to Paris, that she couldn't take it in Israel. She went back to Paris and I want to go to Paris and see her again. It's kooky. You get attached to these people, even though many minds have imagined them, they feel palpable to you.
Yeah, well, you mentioned excavating a lot from your own life. Do you draw on personal things all the time to play her? Like, where do you draw from?
Sometimes it's conscious, Sam, and sometimes it's completely, it like chooses me. It just seizes me. I did a thing that started happening in places where I was imagining the people. This is so insane. It'll make me sound crazy and people will come and lock me up. That I would imagine that my great aunts and my great grandmother, and the night that they were taken on a trolley and shot into a pit, and I was imagining what goes through your mind when you don't know how bad it's going to be, if you're falling or other people falling on top of you. I mean, I went really sensory with the whole thing, and it just made me feel an incredible sense of how fortunate and grateful I was to just get to tell this story, and I didn't have to live that story, and that my story gets to inform their story, and so on and so on and so on. So I know that sounds but just
No, it sounds very real,
yeah.
unfortunately. And I was really struck too by there's a moment where Marcel's husband really has a panic attack and says, I'm leaving, I'm going to Israel, I can't
Yes.
be here anymore. And suddenly you are basically the linchpin who's kind of deciding, am I uprooting my family or not? It's an immense decision to make, but she spends a lot of the time in this play in that position, in the middle, in kind of the driver's seat. What does that kind of weight do to a person?
Well, the weight is comes with the most recent achievement is she's finally head of the department of where she taught. She had a private practice as a psychiatrist. Then she taught, and now she's running the department. And it was like a long gestation period. She got to where she wants to be, her home in the heart of Paris. Everything's in place, and then everything gets destabilized. And what is it? We think we can't live without the things that we've established. And then suddenly, not just his panic, but, he writes about Sarah Halimi, what happened to her, the shooting at the, Charlie Hebdo had already happened, the Bataclan had happened. Muriel Knowles is not mentioned in this play, but that happened shortly after Sarah Halimi. They mentioned Ilhan Halimi. There are cases of things that happened that were the supermarket shooting in the Marais, that it starts feeling like it's getting closer to you, and it's getting closer. And having read, deep dive into 3 books that took place in 1938, the last Waltz in Vienna, that was when I was doing Leopoldstadt, was 1938 Vienna, the Oppermans 1938 Germany, and Suite Française, which was Irene Nemirovsky. Those books just were like, brought it immediately home. What happens when you don't take what's happening around you seriously? And we have to ask, look what's happening around us right now. Are we taking it seriously? Or do we feel insulated? Are we, being blithe about it? Is it,
Were you
is it
ever able
class?
to have like conversations with audience members? Because I know sitting in the audience, it immediately sparked talk around me. Everyone saying, I felt this way, or we've debated this. Were
So many
you?
people came up to us. A lot of people, it was interesting with this. They wanted to see us afterwards, total strangers. They waited for us. And it wasn't the sort of autograph thing. It was, they were emotional. They had a story of their own. They wanted to tell us where it hit them, what they carry with them. And that was a great privilege to feel like you're having an immediate an immediate ability to reach into somebody's own history, that they're making connections while they're watching you. It's not just you're putting on a play. Here's these people, they're all in front of you. It's like everybody in the audience is going back and forwards and sideways to connect to it in a way.
Yeah, it's a very immediate piece. And what did it feel like bringing it from off Broadway to a Broadway house and being in a bigger space?
Well, I was just so thrilled that we got to carry on, and we ended up with six new people. So we were starting over in certain respects. I had a new brother, a new father, a new husband, and a new son. So most of my relationships, the four women remain the same, and it was starting over and examining those relationships, because you can't do the same relationship on a different actor. And I learned things. Nail, who played my husband, just went places that I didn't even know were in the play. So and played that brought us something to our relationship that made me feel differently about that we're a unit that had to move together, that we wouldn't separate. We would make a choice in our most fearful moments together, to stay together as a family. So things like that were interesting to start again. David was really convinced that he hadn't cracked the play, so he was pulling it apart in places. He was restaging entrances and exits until the opening. I mean, we were, things kept just moving around, changing, staging changed. I was like, you might have seen it when I was moving around a table. Then I stopped moving around the table. Then I sat at the table, before I was at a piano bench. Your relationship to how close you are to the audience, how far you are, who you're talking to. Everything felt like it was new again. So, and it was just great to have that big of an audience. And we were, sold out most of the time. So it was exciting to feel. I think we played 85,000 people total got to see the play, which was nice.
That's
For a theater that runs on a subscription, that's pretty great.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's a very long journey with this show to get it to this place. And I know for
Manhattan
the
Theater Club, Lynn Meadow and Steve Cows, they got behind the play and they believed in it and they were committed to it in a way that was really beautiful, that they wanted to keep it in there, in front, and they wanted to remount it and put it up again. I think they were pleased that they did, I
yeah.
hope.
Yeah, well, and I know the off-Broadway version, you were nominated for the Lucille Lortel and Outer Critics Circle Awards for that performance. What does it mean to get that type of recognition?
Um, Makes me a little nervous, but I've been doing this a really long time. I am so aware in the Broadway arena that I'm surrounded, on all four sides by celebrities. I mean, I am like the dark horse who's been at it. I do plays almost exclusively. I'm close to 100 plays. The theater is the form that I love, that I understand, is my home. Since we closed, I've had to do a lot of self tapes for film and television. I'm like, what is this? I don't, while I've made my insurance year after year after year from doing it, it isn't the place I feel home. So I'm very grateful that people are paying attention and think I should be, I think, I don't know. I can't finish my sentence. I really feel like getting to play Marcelle and getting to do that play was the prize. I think prizes, I got an Obie for sustained excellence in 2007, and I didn't work for 9 months. And I thought, oh, I don't know, is this a good thing or not a good thing? I was very pleased that it was for a body of work. But I don't, you know, it's not in my hands. It's up to people who have the experience of seeing it. I just do the work. If people want to make a fuss about it, that's lovely. If it makes getting other work easier, that's lovely. But the reason I do it is because I just love the work itself more than anything.
Yes, well, it was great work. But I did want to ask one thing because you're in a unique position. I feel like with your past two Broadway credits happen to be Best Play winners with Leopoldstadt and All the Way. And
Yeah.
what is it like after, your play that you're in wins the Tony for Best Play? What is that next performance like going back to the theater right after that?
There's like more cookies backstage. Just, the kids in Leopoldstadt were more excited than the adults. You're still telling the same story. Every now and then, when you get recognition, the audience starts like, laughing a little ahead of the joke, or they get a little like giddy, or, they're proud that they got a ticket for it or whatever. But I feel like you're still just telling the story of the play. I don't think it just the writing doesn't change, the direction doesn't change. Only your relationship to if there's new actors come in, that changes, but basically you're doing the same job.
I do. Well, it's
And for us, this we've closed. A lot of people are still
sure.
running because there's so many late breaking shows, and I've been going to see everything because I really believe in supporting the community. And there's just amazing. There's some wonderful work out there, so it's been great to go out and see that. But I just feel sad that we're not there, right now. It'd be nice.
Well, it was there for a really nice run, and it was some great storytelling in Prayer for the French
Thank
Republic.
you.
So thank you, Betsy, for joining me, and everyone who's watching. Make sure you
Thank you.
stick with us the rest of this season. Thanks,
I hope
Betsy.
so. Okay. Thanks, Sam.